Good morning.
Good morning. You can hear me?
I can.
Okay. That was easy. Golly. We have a lot to cover today, my friend. Thank you for putting up with my tech issues. I'm on my phone, as you can see, but we are here and ready to party.
Well, we're going to get into what we found at Point Reyes, which is very, very, very educational. Um, Holy moly, is it educational? And I've spoken to our repeated guest and uh, known published author, ecologist, Laura Cunningham. I've spoken to her, and she's given me some feedback based on what I saw and talked to her about. So we're going to share all of that with everybody today. And Jack wants to um, do some news, some local recent news, and then we'll jump into our Point Reyes field trip.
Yes, thank you. So, put me on the clock for 5 minutes. We don't need to take more than that, but I think it's worthwhile. It's pretty significant, got a lot of media attention. A young woman, um, 23-year-old Zoe Rosenberg, broke into a chicken facility. Purdue Farms owns Petaluma Poultry in Petaluma, California, about 20 miles from where I'm sitting. And, well, depending on what you think, either stole four chickens or rescued four chickens who were ailing and probably would have died. Uh, but that one of them died anyway. Anyway, tomorrow she reports to jail. She got sentenced last week. I was in the courtroom, about 100 people and 250 people total, or 200 people total came. It was a relatively big media event in the animal rights world. And it's fascinating and for a future show. But tomorrow she got 30 days of what the court calls actual jail time, and then an additional 60 days of what's called alternative jail time, which might be community service or house detention. But will, with type 1 diabetes, go into a jail cell, the Sonoma County Courthouse where the trial was held. And I just want to read one last thing that she said, which was kind of great. Her statement out front. Um, Quote, the prosecutors are asking for jail time, and in fact, they wanted me to be in jail right now, meaning they were going to take her right into jail. The judge said no, health issues, come back next week, which is tomorrow, Wednesday. Sonoma County DA's office said that I am a threat to public safety. They did indeed. Kind of hilarious right there, exactly. And they say I put humans and animals at risk when I enter factory farms and slaughterhouses. They're going to say this while denying the criminal animal cruelty that Purdue is allowed to commit every single day that they continue when they continue their operations. So, I mean, for me, that's kind of the main point. They exaggerate the danger and the risk while ignoring, the reason that she was there, and they wouldn't allow a lot of her evidence of the illegally inhumane conditions, which is why they don't allow cameras. If there were cameras in there, the whole thing would just change because people would see the horrible conditions, which they would have to fix, which would cost them money, which would put them out of business. So anyway, I can do a monologue on that, but thank you for letting me say that, and maybe we'll do a future show on it. And now we can talk about the devastation that confining cattle wreaks on the land, not just on chickens and the cruelty of it all, just the incredible cruelty, which has to be hidden from sight. Otherwise, the whole world would be vegan, as they say.
With the detail of the ailing animals being rescued, it leaves me with a question in my mind: what exactly does get served to people? What percent of the miserable corpses of the animals that suffered through being inside of these chicken houses get thrown in the trash, or are included in processing for human consumption? And then to pretend that the ranchers had any worries for the welfare of the animal.
I
Yeah,
got.
I mean these conditions are so bad that it's bad for human beings to work in these chicken houses.
Yeah, no, they wear hazmat suits and breathing, a mask and all that to hide themselves from the toxic ammonia smell of huge amounts of chicken feces in the industry. The other thing I got to say, it reminded me of it's a strange analogy, but the Rodney case, where the defense attorney for the policemen who were basically kicking the living hell out of Rodney King on the ground. They
Yeah.
saw it. I remember seeing it at Nightline. I'm old enough to have watched it live, or excuse me, the broadcast live that had happened that day. They slowed down the footage of the police repeatedly kicking him, and it became this Orwellian thing where they said, "You see, he's trying to get up," and he was trying to like cover himself and get away from them. And every time he did, they said, "Oh, he's threatening us. Kick him some more." And there was a similar scene, horrible, fascinating political and frustrating political theater in the courthouse, where the prosecutor was defending the rescue of the chickens. And, she would show a picture, with a chicken missing feathers, and he would say it wasn't the case, or, that wasn't that chicken, or that she took chicken, rescued them and put them in a plastic bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. Look at her abusing the chicken. It was a back and forth. It was really just, I wish I could record it all and show it to the public. Like, you decide who's telling the truth here, because one of these two people is lying. The woman who's in there to risk jail time to save a few chickens to raise awareness, or the guy who's defending the corporation, which is pressing the DA to bring the case in the first place.
Okay. I'm going to go mad, so let's move on.
Yes, let's talk about the calming, exciting effect of seeing cows on the land at the small, historic beef and dairy ranches. Now, the dairy ranches are going out of business, but there's still a lot of beef cows out there. We spent Friday and Saturday out in the park, folks, and we're going to get into all that. And thanks, Skyward, for your visuals, because mine ain't working on this phone. Yeah.
Corinne, good morning to you. And she says she loves the banner. Jack, while we were on this field trip, sent me a TNC targeted grazing article. And then I went to the TNC website, and here's, the article. And first thing that came on my mind is that animal agriculture's propaganda has gotten so far-fetched that it won't be long before we're being taught that cattle grazing will bring back snow.
Well, you know what? Let me rephrase that. So that's clever and good on you for making that. But we're already there, Skylar.
Yeah, we are. We're already there.
In other words, just think about this. I mean, people get so close to it, they don't see it for what it is. So that's why law history. The Nature Conservancy, a group called We Conserve Nature, is recommending, not recommending, they're already, as we'll get into, 400,000 acres of lands are being grazed. And that's such a benign term, but they're bringing cows, for-profit cows, it's always for profit, otherwise why have them at all, right? Onto the land to restore it, to regenerate it, to heal it, to recarbonize it. Whatever the terminology they use, it's all the opposite of the truth.
Yep.
Cattle operations, despite say, not simulate the effect of bison, original grazers on the land. They're different animals, bred for a different purpose, removed from the land, and they're a destructive force. And we keep going on about this because we have to, because we're challenging the status quo, which is more and more environmentalists are fooled because they hear the lies repeated so often that cows are in any way helpful to the landscape or to the environment, let alone to the torture of the cow when they're killed young. But that's another story.
I wrote something that I want to read, and a late hello from Stephen Axel.
Oh,
I'm going to put. I would really encourage listeners to pay attention to this part, because honestly, if anyone opposes what I'm saying or doing, please explain to me why what I'm about to tell you is unreasonable. And I wrote it so that I wouldn't go into a curse word filled rant, and this way I'll stay composed.
I think I'm disappointed.
Well, I'm sure we'll get there later.
And good morning.
Okay, here we go. Is it not reasonable to consider visual evidence as a guide when forming a plan? Is it not reasonable to look and recognize patterns that are right in front of you? To me, it's not only reasonable, but actually unreasonable to ignore evidence that is being provided to you. And what patterns, what evidence am I talking about? The evidence that I just witnessed with my own eyes by going back out to Point Reyes, evidence that anyone can witness if they choose to bear witness. It's right there, ready and waiting for you. It's right there and ready for the Park Service. It's right there waiting for ranch supporters. It's right there and waiting for that teacher in Point Reyes who brainwashed her children. It's right there waiting for the TNC. It's ignored. And it's blatantly obvious. Now, here's what we saw at the ranch, and it's what I've always seen at the ranches, and it's happening yet again. At each ranch on the actual main property, where you will find barns, corrals, and even the human living structures, that's what I'm talking about when I say the main part of the property, it's exclusively non-native plants of various species. No native plants, maybe just so that I don't get caught on a technicality. Maybe there was a native out there on one of these ranches somewhere, but it was almost exclusively non-native plants in high density right at the ranch itself. And then as you go outward, the same theme continues. And when I say go outward, I'm talking about the grazing lands that surround the central parts of these ranches. Again, lack of native plants, abundance of non-native plants.
And to put it, it's that is a result of the cattle operations.
Well, Jack, don't tell people what to think. I'm asking if any of this evidence is unreasonable. So let's look at a pattern that is the polar opposite. Since you mentioned that, we also visited areas that aren't grazed by cattle. And these areas have an abundance of native plants and very few non-native plants. Let's see. The area that actively ranches has an abundance of non-natives and little to no natives. The areas where they don't use cattle have natives and few non-natives. I wonder if I can draw a correlation to the use of cattle grazing. I mean, it seems like a reasonable hypothesis to form, maybe something that an organization with funds would like to pursue. Maybe a study could be based on basic elementary observations. I mean, I would still consider myself an amateur, but it's obvious enough to me, and it's obvious enough that I feel like I could explain it to a child. There's a third form of evidence, and this is one I hadn't been expecting. There are the silage fields that I have filmed, the depressing silage fields, where I have seen nests chopped up, where I have seen deer chopped up, where I've seen wildlife trained to go into the silage fields and look for the carnage that the mowing leaves behind. There's nothing there until now. Land that has been repeatedly abused for years, and when I say abused, I mean used for commodity crops, seeded with non-native commodity crops, like intentionally seeded with plants that shouldn't be in the national seashore, grown, irrigated, fertilized, then mowed down year after year after year. Guess what's happening right now? For the first time that I've ever seen it, already, native lupin are fighting their way back. What's missing? Ranching activity. That's my third form of evidence that seems pretty freaking blatant. What about evidence to counter my arguments? As good as the points are that I made, I think that they're pretty good points. Maybe there's evidence that counters what I'm saying. Well, there's certainly no shortage of ranches in California. There's certainly no shortage of ranches in Marin County. There's certainly no shortage of ranches outside of the seashore, because you can't use a single ranch inside of the seashore. I just went and verified that. You can't use a single ranch inside of the seashore to counter what I just said. So maybe you have to go look somewhere else to magically find evidence contrary to what I just saw. Doesn't exist. Go look at those ranches. We filmed them on the way in. It's crap. It's abused land.
Do,
It's an incredible lack of native vegetation and habitat and an astonishing lack of wildlife. What did I ask you, Jack? As we were driving, when's the last time you saw a deer or anything at all?
we saw one.
Maybe what?
Do you have any pictures to show? By the way, I know I was supposed to bring
Yeah,
them in.
we're going to get there.
Okay,
Answer my
I just it
question.
really helps people to show rather than or talk while showing. The show and tell we did as kids.
Yeah, we're going to get there. I
Okay,
want people to hear my words
okay.
and answer my questions.
Get on it, people. Satisfy this man.
Well, I just asked you a question. How many deer did we see in the hills outside of Point Reyes National Seashore?
Well, we saw deer both on range.
Outside.
Uh, I don't remember seeing any on the way
We
in
didn't. That's
because
the answer.
they're in the forest. I mean, there's no open land for to see them. They're
Well, I
not
thought it was habitat, Jack. What are you talking about? That ranch land is habitat. Shouldn't we be seeing wildlife?
that ranch land. I wish I could show in my photographs is devastated land that's turned into, to use your wonderful phrase, a monoculture golf course. And I would add of devastation. See the occasional bobcat or coyote as we did, or deer as we did, but that's because it's not a healthy or natural habitat. It's been degraded and destroyed.
We're going to get to the photos, and I actually lead up to it with this that I've prepared. Um, you can show me, you can't show me evidence. You couldn't take me out. Anyone who wants to counter my arguments, you couldn't physically take me and show me any evidence contrary to what I'm claiming. Now, could you show me that a propaganda film exists somewhere online? You can. And guess what we've shown? Even those propaganda films don't show you evidence. Even those propaganda films don't show you that cattle grazing is working, which is kind of amazing in itself. Now, there's another important point. Several species of the plants that I found on ranch lands aren't just non natives, they aren't even consumable by cattle. It's one thing to have all of the annual grasses from Europe and have all the silage field crop plants, but we also have bull thistle, Italian thistle, milk thistle, and poison hemlock. So even if all the observations that I just made weren't good enough, how about the fact that when you bring in this targeted grazing, they aren't going to consume those problem plants that I just talked about? What will they do? Will they walk amongst them, spread them, trample their seeds into the soil, and start the next generation of problem plants over? Huh. Sounds like a great plan to fight non-natives, doesn't it?
But I don't understand. I thought they were going to bring special cows in that only eat their non-vegetation and they leave good, happy plants alone, right?
Dude, you can't even get goats to do that the way that people claim. I've done the tests. Goats don't want that crap either. Will they eventually get to it? Yeah, if you pin them in to where there's absolutely nothing left, and the last thing to be consumed will be these toxic plants. I mean, they vary in their toxicity, but it's called poison hemlock for a reason. I invite anyone to put milk thistle in their mouth and see what happens. So this finally brings me to an image Laura sent, and then some of the research papers she sent me, because I had this conversation with her. I was like, how, Laura? It's this basic. How is it possible that the people in charge are ignoring science?
This is
I
Laura,
mean, yeah,
biologist and Watersheds Project for folks who don't.
to me, the only possible explanation is corruption. It's not just incompetence. This is intentionally ignoring evidence and doing the wrong thing. Now she can't share her opinion on that because she's in a more official position than me. Anyway, the Nature Conservancy should be referred to as the Cattle Conservancy. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a different image up. And we're going to start with this one. And I'm going to make us smaller for a little bit. What you're looking at is a pattern that Laura has not only observed, but she's drawn a sketch of it. And at the top, you have the original native deep-rooted perennial grasses and biological soil crust. Another topic that few people even think about is the biological soil crust that cattle make absolutely impossible to exist. So we go down, and here we go. Cattle grazing and trampling. What happens after that? Cheatgrass. Annual shallow roots. What happens after that? Well, maybe fire if you're lucky, or unlucky, depending on which opinion you have about fire, because some people want to use it intentionally, and some people are just mortified of it. But one way or another, we come back to cattle grazing and trampling, and cheatgrass growing, and the absence of native plants, deep-rooted perennial plants.
So you're saying that the grass that grows as a result of cattle becomes the excuse. We have to stop the fire danger by bringing in cattle to eat.
Correct. And Laura said this as well. I was reading her email, and it's beyond frustrating to me because this is what I've been screaming about with the goat grazing for years. There isn't a location where the goats are used that the weeds don't come back stronger every year, even with more variety of non-natives, which, by the way, is another issue with now trucking in cattle. You're bringing cattle in from different locations where they are possibly exposed to a wider variety of non-natives. Now you're going to bring those cattle into a national seashore, potentially bringing in even more non-native seeds, in addition to the large number that are already there. Laura sent me a list of the non-native plants currently in Point Reyes National Seashore. It's like 4 pages long of small print. Good work, Park Service. You've really made some headway.
And when we were in the park, just again, Friday, we saw a truck bringing into the park. They take this beautiful natural landscape, degrade it, and then they truck in resources, food and water, captured animals before they truck the animals out. So it really sort of like a holding tank of decimation, just so opposite natural.
Let me put this up on the screen. This is just a handful of studies that are available that actually do take an intelligent approach. This is happening in California using the opposite methods that the TNC and the Park Service have decided to use in Point Reyes National Seashore. Sorry, I'll make it bigger. It's really, you can't read anything of value there, Corinne. I'm going to do a much longer video going through the fields that Jack and I went through, showing everyone all the plants and proving that this isn't just made up, as I've been doing year after year after year, as if anyone who doesn't want to believe it is suddenly going to start believing it.
Well, that's the activist job, man. It's repetition of the truth. Propaganda accepted as truth.
Here's one of the first places that we hopped out of the car, and because I have a point that we have all these thistles to worry about. This is what a field that doesn't look as terrible as some other ones does, because it's mostly just non-native annual cheatgrasses. And none of it's supposed to be there. And of course, this is ranch land.
It's there because of the ranches, because of the cows. And it's been whatever, 100, 150 years, with the historic ranches coming in from Europe so long ago.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah,
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
You say that without the cows, weeds will grow. Well, yes, they will come in and eat some of them, and then the weeds will grow. Oh, but if the weeds grow, you got to bring back the cattle. And I mean, does anyone think that there should be a end date, like a goal at when you actually accomplish what you said you were going to accomplish? Like time is flying by now. When I started asking that question with the goat grazing, I only had a couple of years under my belt, so I had to hypothetically say, well, maybe that's not enough time. I'm approaching the better part of a decade, and the proof continues to be you're not making any progress, and nobody seems to give a shit. They're just happy to keep spending public money to feed livestock. It's just a different form of animal agriculture, except they got you not only to subsidize it, but actively pay through a community service now that you're afraid of fire.
And conversely, I think opposite the cypress tree tunnel we visited out on
Mm.
Drake, you look at areas where, oh my gosh, look, because there have not been cattle on that land recently, you can tell because trampled, there were actually some coyote brush fighting its way back to survive now that it's no longer being trampled. So if you get off the land, take the cows off, take the ranches out, the land can heal itself without any assistance as well.
So, again, cattle, degraded land, trampled land, barbed wire fencing, and not a single native plant in that picture, ladies and gentlemen.
And
Not
for
one.
here, I do also want to point out that, it's really tricky. We're trained to say, oh, look, it's green. Cows outside in a big green field. Isn't that nice? And sadly, you need to be educated to know that that grass is not what was originally there. There's no area for wildlife to hide, which would be an actual coastal scrub or coastal prairie where there's more and taller plants. And even just looking back into the photograph there, it's all barren. And it's tricky because from a distance, you can't really see the difference between the monoculture golf course of a cattle ranch, a pasture, as they call it, and coastal prairie where there's coyote brush that's 5 or 6 feet deep, tall, and animals can hide and live in there and eat the plants, which they're supposed to grass only for a cow.
Hello, Ray Cooper. Thanks for being here. Corinne says she didn't realize that they were growing their feed in the seashore. Thank you for your research and keen observation. Well, let's clarify that they not only grow feed in the seashore in the form of commodity crops, but there's also the massive amount of land that is pastoral land and is grazed upon, and then they also import 18 wheelers of hay, and then there's other feed and there's supplements. I mean, it's, as Jack likes to quote me, the most inefficient way to grow food ever.
It's funny, Skylar's quoting Jack, quoting Skylar. It's the most, or you even do it this way, it's the most inefficient way to raise food for human consumption.
Corinne says the poor cows, which is, interesting because I'm sure a lot of people look at that and say, wow, what a great life they have. Yeah, depending on, yeah,
Well,
certainly compared to a slaughterhouse, right?
well,
I
also,
don't know.
if these are what this picture here, so those guys at, I don't know, 2 or 3, they're mature and then they're sent off to slaughter instead of living out a 20-year lifespan, which would be the natural thing they would do if they weren't raised for slaughter. So even if you say, hey, they're not being tortured in that photograph, it's better than a compact feedlot, killed basically as teenagers. I mean, it's just, yeah, you don't see it in the picture. That's the trouble with our mission to educate people. It's you have to be looking at, as here.
Yeah, so this is Kehoe Ranch, and this is one of the paths that the cattle take to get from one place to another. And in addition to the annual grasses, the tall yellow stuff that you see are stalks of giant poison hemlock, something else that seems to be on just about every ranch and suddenly starts disappearing when you move into native habitat, ungrazed habitat. If I go back really quick to this photo, um,
That photo is blinking. Oh, I see. That was me.
when it's not winter in California, This is sand and manure. That's how degraded the land is. Sand, I mean, it has been trampled and overgrazed to the point of sand.
Yeah. All right.
Lucky for the ranchers, weeds don't seem to care. They don't seem to mind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of the non-natives are opportunistic and they grow in disturbed soil. So the more cattle,
Yes.
the more the opportunity to grow there. Yeah.
More, I mean, Jack, what you just said is additional evidence that what they're going to do isn't going to work. Weeds like disturbance. Cattle are going to provide the disturbance. Human beings even provide disturbance. You'll also see more weeds on the sides of walking trails than you will where humans aren't going. It's just observational science. Use your eyes and then start asking questions. Why is this taking place here and not over there?
Well, the TNC, the Nature Conservancy, asks us to do kind of a variation of what the President of the United States, to paraphrase, has suggested. Years, I'll tell you what the truth is, which is
Mm.
also, by the way, George Orwellian. We alone have the truth. Don't believe your own eyes or water observations that Skyward is pointing out here.
Well, and it works in a similar way. If you never wanted to believe the truth and want to believe what Trump is telling you, then just tune in and he'll give you another lie. If you don't want to believe the truth of ecology, then just ignore actual scientists and listen to ranching propaganda. And why? Why do you want to believe that? Because ranching is something you're familiar with and we're indoctrinated to think is good, and you don't want to feel guilty about continuing to consume the planet for the enjoyment of flavor.
Exactly. You know, it's funny. I was listening to filmmaker Sean Monson, I believe his name is pronounced. I was saying Munson, but it's Monson, maker of Earthlings, narrated by Joaquin Phoenix. A great,
Mm,
great 90-minute feature film that will turn people vegan if they have the courage to watch it. And just saying, it's easier. His thought was, it's easier to get people to no small feat than it is to get them to change their diet. As you
hmm
how
hmm
people do not want to give up burgers and milkshakes, and they will do just about any rationalization, any dodge, and any denial, willful ignorance to avoid changing just some of the foods they eat. It's just
I have a friend that I finally just lost patience with because he was so disappointing. He actually had his stomach stapled rather than change his diet.
yeah,
This is someone who had the discipline to quit alcohol
wow.
when he had a drinking problem, but won't give up eating meat and dairy and
And I
just
see a friend of yours, so you know he's tried, Beyond Beef and Impossible Burger, some of those. I don't particularly like those foods, but they can get people onto a non-meat product that's tastes similar anyway, healthy, but it spares lots of animals' lives. No, no success with that.
no, no. Um, all right, so more ranch land. We're starting to see young thistle interwoven with the weeds. Also, we have some mustard, silage field plants. Sorry, Jack. I don't mean to do that to you every time I change. We're starting
It's Christmas
to
or something. Holidays.
this is North Kehoe, where we're starting to see signs of their incredible stewardship of the land. Um,
And
looks like that's left behind. Period, because Kehoe himself is gone. I have some other shots of that. Here it is. It has broken up and blown around into various locations. So you have sharp metal shards laying around. And hey, what's growing up amongst it? Poison hemlock and annual grasses.
and that is literally, this is a collapse, some sort of barn structure. It is, pressed steel, or yeah, it's steel because it was rusted too. Around, I mean, I was kind of like touching it and like, ow, almost cut myself on it. it's just sitting there, man. And this is typical rancher behavior of how they steward the land by leaving their garbage behind. And that's been there for years, obviously, rusted the way it was.
And they have the nerve to say that they left because they were frustrated with the Park Service being too tough on them.
Right.
Which,
They've only had 50 or 48 years of free leases. They wanted more. It wasn't enough. They wanted guarantees and more subsidies because they're not being subsidized by the public tax already, which they are. Oy. And
that
but
highlights what you were saying. This image highlights what you were saying earlier with the rusting.
yeah, I want to thank you, Skylar, for the pictures. I was supposed to, folks, Skylar's being a good sport about it, but I was supposed to have photographs, which I've taken. Maybe we'll do another follow up on this huge topic next week. I'm having computer issues, but those will be rectified by next show, and I can show some more pictures that I was doing a lot of photography for a change in there, and have some pictures to show and share. So I was carrying the show. I appreciate it.
More typical stewardship, entanglement traps laying on the ground, posts and barbed wire. This is just typical all across Point Reyes National Seashore. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I just said inside of Point Reyes National Seashore. This is typical. Typical.
Inside a national park, 18,000 acres of pasture land ringed by these nasty ass, rusted, old, dilapidated, out of repair, semi-collapsed in lots of places, barbed wire, and also straight wire fence. All of 200 miles is one estimate we've heard thrown back. That all needs to come out.
And here's a wider shot. You see more of the debris, you see the fencing, and you see the feeding structures. Concrete out there in the middle of nowhere, troughs, grain or food troughs, as well as water troughs. It takes a lot to raise commodity animals. It takes away a lot from earth and natural beauty. This is a one. Oh no, that's we start seeing some good things, but it's overwhelmed by the bad things. But ladies and gentlemen, Jack and I were excited to see Tule elk on Kehoe land.
So,
and that's what those little dots are. Sadly, you see what still remains of the Kehoe torture facility in the background, and his entanglement fences in the foreground, and mixed into all of that are the non-native plants that come with the cattle.
so if I may, to
Yeah.
grab apt ranting about, actually put that picture back up if you would, please, while I'm talking. Thank you. It was actually a bit of really good news, and let me frame it this way. This is Kehoe, which is J Ranch, which is about a mile from the fence line, which has now been partially opened. All of the elk reserve fence, one of the three herds in the park, has been partially dismantled, enough that elk can now get out of the reserve. So we don't know for sure where these come. We wish there was a study, but where it's likely that a lot of these elk, it was about, I counted 74 on this hillside in this shot, and I have a really nice photograph of this, which I'll show next week perhaps. But this is the largest number of Tule elk at Point Reyes Seashore we've ever seen on this property, which was ranch land. It's not quite closed down, but it's closing down a mile from the reserve, J Ranch. And it's really good news, folks. There's a lot of green or whatever, including the grass that the elk will eat in the meantime until the native plants are restored. There's water, there's rain, there's we're right now, next summer. But this is the largest herd of elk we've seen in this property. It's really good news. The elk are doing just as we expected, without being corralled out or pushed out. To wander south, and hey, we got more land now, and the ranchers aren't hazing them away, or God forbid, shooting them, or shooting them at night and burying them, or eating them. God knows what. So there is that bit of, yes, the elk will proliferate when they're out.
70 some elk there on Kehoe land, and out of the Park Service's own mouth, they said the elk won't leave even if we take the fence down.
They did? I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
before all this began, before the fence came down in
Yeah,
January.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, back when they were saying that the elk didn't have a problem and they were where they wanna be. It's
Wow.
in the film I'm working on.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, the Park Service needs to go. I don't they're not good people.
The Park Service needs to go.
I mean, those particular employees need to be replaced.
Well, my hope is that, I mean, you and I are good cop, bad cop on this issue, I suppose. But the Park Service, I believe, and look at folks in the audience. Watch Skylar's face as Jack speaks now. No, no, show your face, Skylar. Come back here. Get back here.
Can you not see me?
Well, I just want to see your face. It's just funny because I'm going to play good cop here, which is, I think Park do the right thing
I'm already mad.
if we push them in the right direction, because there are good
Oh,
people,
Jesus Christ.
wildlife. Yeah, exactly. Good
Yes,
cop.
because doing their job correctly wasn't a good enough motivation.
Two different
Because it is in fact their job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get your anger, man. I totally understand it. Like, what the hell, Park Service? You're supposed to be on the side of the wildlife, not the been on the side of the
You
years.
you remind me of one of the most stunning quotes that I got out of Melanie Gunn. Um, she spoke ceaselessly for 3.5 hours. So when you talk for that long, you end up hanging yourself accidentally. And as she was trying to describe the difficulty of being park staff there, started listing violations of the leases that the ranchers routinely engage in.
Wow.
Of course, it wasn't her intention to be doing that. I don't think she realized what she was doing. But I said, with that opportunity, if there's such bad tenants, why do you guys keep extending their leases? Why do you want to deal with this?
Good question.
And she, yeah,
Good question.
and yeah, but you're not going to believe the answer. She said, we've tried to crack down on them, and when we do, the politicians come down on us.
Well, you know what, my friend? What do you make of that? Because that strikes me as incredibly honest. I mean, frighteningly so. I wish you'd say it in public.
Oh,
Melanie,
she started backpedaling real fast after she realized that came out of her mouth.
right? She can't say that because then she'll lose her job. For the politicians, will put pressure to remove that PR lady for the park. Of course,
Look at
truth.
NPS. I mean, look at NC. I love it.
NC says the NPS, not Park Service, will do the right thing after exhausting all other possibilities. Yeah, and not even. Rin says, unfortunately, if the current park employees are replaced, I bet it wouldn't improve anything. Sadly, meaning they're all bowing to political pressure. Yeah, so that's right.
Depends on who gets to replace them.
Say again.
But yes, I get your point.
Yeah, of course. And that's our job as activists, is to put our own political pressure, which we successfully did in changing, at least challenging the narrative that ranchers good, elk caught, as opposed to the truth, which is elk good, wild animals good.
Corinne says which politicians, and it's a great question. Of course, we've known that Jared Huffman has been acting on their behalf for many years. He's shifting in the wind a little bit, as Jack has pointed out, but they also have lobbyists that they have paid, and it's not even a secret that they've paid them. But if you know that Jared Huffman tried to push through the 20-year leases while avoiding an environmental impact study and all the other processes that are supposed to take place. He tried to push that through without anyone even knowing, like getting it done before it was too late, or before activists could catch word, or before people, any politicians on our side would have a chance to oppose it.
Yeah, and to clarify before we go to the coyote there, Corinne, and for anybody else, when we activists showed up, and this is Skylar a year or so before me, and then me 19, I guess, began with this. Right, there was not a single politician who was on the side of the elk. Every single politician was on the side of the cattle and the ranch. No exception.
Mm-hmm.
Not local, not county, not state, not federal. And the first one
Mm-hmm.
that I remember actually publicly changing, once we brought the water testing and the dead elk pictures and years of activists pushing on it, and I was now finally late to the table, active in this campaign, then Huffman started kind of measuring it and, like a politician, putting his finger to the wind. what the hell happened? Anyway, yeah, just about a voice. So now, when this plan went through with Park Service, Huffman has turned. He's pro the wild animals. He's of course very cautious, but he's the only politician. Dennis Verdoni has been kind of quiet, but a county supervisor now speaking that this deal has to go through. But it has been a long, slow slog, and we activists always have to be the cutting edge of the truth out to the public.
In my original film, I quote Huffman basically just repeating the BS that came out of Dave Press's mouth. This is a politician pretending to be an ecologist telling the world that there was nothing unnatural about 50% of the herd dying because, that's just drought conditions. Yes, it's drought conditions of animals that are locked up. Oh, boy.
He says we have the best politicians money can buy. By the way, I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with your coyote there, man.
Well, Corinne said make it big, and it's better looking than we are. And this was also on North Kehoe, and he was pretty relaxed, an older gentleman. I think an older gentleman, just sharing some wildlife photos. Oh, well, yeah. You know what? I've obviously gone to Point Reyes quite a few times. I saw more wildlife in this weekend than I've seen all other times. I feel like possibly that's not distracting at all.
I don't know why it was pointed up on my ceiling. I'm trying to get myself back on camera here. I don't know whether you did it on your end or on my end. I haven't moved.
Oh yeah, I did it.
Just to mess with me, because you don't have enough technical troubles with Jack's setup. Yeah, go ahead. The coyote, sir.
Well, I saw more wildlife this weekend in Point Reyes National Seashore than I've seen in my previous trips there. I saw my first bobcat. We saw 3 different coyotes. We saw deer. We saw a harrier, other red-tailed hawks, and obviously a lot of elk. These weren't the only elk we saw. We saw a lot of elk.
White-tailed kite, barn owls.
Barn owls. Yep. I forgot the wildlife at night as we were leaving the park late at night. You know what's missing from these photos? I took a still of the water trough on Kehoe land that was left behind, filled with algae and overgrown with, various forms of things that you would not want to see in drinking water. And it brings up an interesting point. Hey, Park Service, who pretended to be so concerned about activists bringing in good quality water and tending to the troughs as an excuse to stop people from helping the elk. Well, Park Service, now all the troughs of the ranchers on all this ranch land are, by your own concerns, apparently threatening wildlife. You better get out there and dismantle all those troughs. At the minimum, clean them, because right now they're all sitting there full of algae, threatening wildlife, possibly even drowning some.
And what's going to happen with all the cattle ponds that are all, cow manure, for the most part, cow manure polluted? That's another open question. But anyway, it'll all begin when the ranches are all out. Then we can assess the damage. Okay, it's a stopping point. Now, what can we do? That has to happen first, and that's as of April 1st, right? Or that's the date that all ranchers are supposed to have cleared out completely.
Yeah, you can put faith in a date. A date agreed to amongst multiple corrupt parties, the TNC and the ranchers themselves, and the Park Service for whatever part they played in this or didn't. My final image, because we are running out of time, is when we finally made our way to the other side. And this is E Ranch, one of the ranches that the Nunez family leases. And it was just a myriad of invasive plants. Steve Cutts is here. What are you talking about?
What does that mean, Corinne? Steve Cutts
watching our channel? That would be amazing.
Well, Steve Cutts is a hero of mine. What a masterful filmmaker and animation guy. I wish. God, if you are, Steve, Corinne, don't tease me like that. I'm a fanboy of that guy's artwork.
Uh, so we'll end the show with me and Jack arguing about how Jack handled the person that rolled up on us or rolled up to take pictures while we were filming this.
Happy to do it, big boy. Let's mix it up with some conflict at the end. Let's go for it. Let's come on, put up your dukes, buddy. Go for it. And we'll have a bar fight.
So this friend of
Here we go.
the ranchers, self
Described.
described friend. I see the Steve Cutts art behind the image. Oh yeah, that's from last week. Corinne. Anyway, she comes up and just starts volunteering all this information about how her friend is living in Petaluma, the rancher who used to ranch out here, but still owns the land out here. Again, showing that the ranchers convey to people incorrectly that they own this land rather than we're leasing it. She went on to talk about how the ranchers have been telling her that things have been going downhill for a very long time. So this was basically inevitable. And she mentioned climate change. And what I find really interesting is that if you go to media, you pretty much would be left with the conclusion that these ranches were doing just fine until the activists came in and ruined everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then Jack started educating her, and she stopped spilling the beans.
So Skylar, a skilled, experienced filmmaker, wanted to let's just record all the. Just let her go. Let her spin this.
Let them hang themselves.
Let them hang themselves. Totally valid. You're not wrong. But I maintain that what I was doing was another way to do, a bit of film, which was, I've heard this stuff, and you can get 100 ranchers to spew this nonsense. Oh, the poor ranchers, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to see what happens when you throw a couple of factoids in. Just, throw a monkey wrench of truth into the gears of this propaganda and see what would happen. Watch the gears grind, or in her case, just ignored. Just totally ignored. So I was doing stuff that was pissing off Skylar, which is just like, shut up, let me do this.
He was also exposing us because she was on her way out to visit the ranches that still remained there. And I've experienced firsthand what happens when you alert ranchers to your presence.
And we also discussed that, folks. Yeah, so Skylar has had a lot more conflict out there, so he's much more wary of it. I'm naive to it because I haven't had any fights with ranchers and just say, hi, how you doing? I don't say I'm opposed to everything you do, but I'm not worried about the conflict because I haven't had it yet. So just two different. It's as if we're two different people with two different points of view and personalities. What a surprise! Yeah. And yet, folks, this is the 55th show we've managed to do without killing each other. And not a single bar fight in all of it. And are we going to do more of this next week? Because I will then be armed and ready to go and fire tested to be able to show more photographs. And I'd love you to show a few video clips out there. I think it'd be really great for people to see. Maybe we'll do that if there's a request by the audience, or at least not something else we feel we need to do instead. A part 2.
Well, let's focus on your equipment working properly, and we'll make plans.
Yes, exactly. Technically challenged here, folks, but that's all going to change. Thanks, Corinne. Yeah, anyways, 55 shows. And Steve Axelrod, 55 shows is quite an accomplishment. We didn't even acknowledge the 52nd show, a year of shows. Corinne wants to see part 2.
I tell you what, as I lamented to Jack, even though it was a successful trip, I said, I have an entire documentary's worth of footage to go back and go through. And it could be. I mean, damning evidence all over the place. Indeed. And it was also kind of, I don't know, it was a little bit emotional for me realizing how many years have already gone by, how many more years of damage and damage to the land, damage to the water, sucking taxpayers dry, torturing animals took place from when I made the Shame on Point Reyes to now. And it was kind of an odd feeling revisiting some of the places that are now empty prisons and seeing them without the prisoners inside. I mean, it's eerie. Like ranches are eerie places. Like it's really like you're visiting an abandoned torture facility. The equipment that's still sitting there, it's creepy.
Yeah, indeed. And so back to mission, the reason, at least in my mind, I don't disagree with this, that we focus on Point Reyes, which is important locally, but unknown, and Stephen Axelrod, a listener here, is in Switzerland. What does he know about Point Reyes Seashore? Probably never been there. But this is emblematic in microcosm of the problem of cattle ranching, certainly throughout the United States, as well, of course, as in South America, where we're still cutting down forests and destroying the land, and in America, specifically saying cattle will heal the land, which is a big industry lie to keep the beef and dairy industries afloat as they suffer and as they're heavily subsidized by the public and still suffering. In fact, Nyman Ranch Beef, Bill Nyman is the name people know. He's one of the two ranchers that is still in the park. In the southern end, not where we were exploring for the last 2 days, Friday and Saturday, but this goes on. So what we're talking about here has national and even international significance, I posit. And to mission, would you put up your link to donate to Skylar? Do you have a link you had, Skylar? And while you're doing that,
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, I'd like to get this guy a few $1,000s at least just to get him. I mean, he has another film in the making. It's just a huge amount of time and footage and hard drives and then editing time and production. It just, filmmaking is an expensive, thankless job, as they say. He does it out of passion. So if you feel moved by Skylar's work, please donate to him here.
Thank you, Jack. This time I did put it in the description, and
Great.
a couple of people donated enough to get the gas money to go out there to get to you and then carpool with you, and that's appreciated. But editing something into a film is an incredible amount of time, and if you're doing that, then you aren't making money anywhere else. So the donations are important and appreciated.
Exactly. Yeah, people don't I mean, I've learned that late in life, probably in my 40s, if not my 50s, that editing is how you carve a narrative. It's how a film is made. The shooting and the interviewing and all that and the equipment is critical, but without the editing, you have no film. You have
Well,
no
it's
story.
usually a team of like between 10 and 20 people.
And at least a professional director and then a professional full-time one or two editors editing a film, and it takes months and months and months of pros who are paid well and do nothing but that. Corinne just donated $50.
Oh,
Thank you, Corinne. That's
wow.
very
Thank you,
sweet of
Karen.
you,
And she
Skylar.
did it with a super chat.
Which means she gets to talk or she gets to be highlighted. What does that mean?
Well, it means that she paid directly through the YouTube app. And if you're able to do that, hope we can get to the point to where you're able to call in, because I understand you have trouble with that part. And by the way, not that I am rejecting this, but instead of YouTube taking some of it, and if you want a tax deductible donation, you can use the link that I provided. But the super chat is awesome too. I appreciate it very much.
It probably
It's convenient.
it also probably helps the algorithm, Skylar. I'm thinking if they see you're getting donations, I'm guessing that tells YouTube you got something, right?
That's a great observation, Jack. It's
Yeah.
probably very true.
If I was YouTube, and I'm not, I wish I were, and sometimes it would be wired that way. Like, oh, this is active. People are donating to it. Let's give this guy a little bit more visibility, which is the game here. If anybody listening in the audience who knows how to promote a podcast professionally or knows someone who does, please contact me, Jack at treespiritproject.com. I'd love to promote the show we do. We enjoy our content and think it's of pretty high caliber. Not as good as the intelligent Joe Rogan, of course, but it's for
Jesus.
promoting a show. Yeah, I watched him recently, and I was just kind of just stupefied. Like, wow, this guy is number one. Why? I mean, what the hell?
He just sits there and overreacts and doesn't have any clue if the person's lying to him or telling the truth.
I often come to a show not as well prepared as I know I could be. It's time and effort and all that. But like, my God, he's being paid millions, and he comes so underprepared. It's just terrifying. I watched a clip today, actually, on Instagram of Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson on his show with a it was Jon Stewart bit, and he had Mel Gibson had a thing of water. Here's just a coffee mug, and he was ice water, and he was making fun of the fact that people believe there's climate change and the sea levels are going to rise because when that ice melts, I've got a cup of ice right here, and it doesn't raise the sea level. So Jon Stewart made fun of the fool by taking a glass filled with water and taking a bucket of ice and taking the ice out of the bucket and throwing it into the glass, into the cup. So it's spilling all over the place because, of course, the icebergs melt because they're not in the water first and they go into the water, Mel Gibson. Joe Rogan, the great Joe Rogan. And they were like agreeing on this stuff, like, oh my God, the American idiocracy is here already. Wow.
And they have a voice with millions of followers.
Right.
Corinne, do you have to write down the donation link? This time it's in the description of the video. So if you go to the recording of this video, you can see it there. If clicking on it here causes a problem. But I'm excited that you were able to do the super chat. So let's not stress too much. That's awesome.
Yeah, Corinne, my God, thank you so much for the donation to Skylar. That's great. And it's a start. And however you do it is wonderful. Thank you.
I do. We're at 10:02. And man, I was really hoping to get someone out there, someone from the idiocracy crowd, to try and counter the most basic observations that I just made. Or even anyone on our side. Like, chime in here. Was that not as obvious of evidence as you could hope for to give someone who was planning a restoration project for the Park Service to start with by looking at what's happening, has been happening out there?
So next week, I would love to show the Nature Conservancy's what I call a cattle call. Yeah. A cattle call. They put out a cattle call. Hey, grazers, come on in, make us a bid to bring cows into the National Seashore. We just got rid of the friggin' cows. It's insane. I want to show the document.
They're doing a bidding process?
I just want to show the document later, next week, because reading it is not the same as showing it. I have the document on my screen here. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And that just means we have to have complete faith that Jack's new computer will work.
Correct. It will be battle tested before we go on next Tuesday.
Yes, I expect you to spend 5 days on that thing.
As God is my witness.
Not 10 minutes before the show starts. You're going to spend the entire weekend with that computer, getting to know it intimately.
Yeah. Well, I just need one program to work. That's it.
Well, Corinne, let's end with your comment, because how do you get them to consider your evidence when it's this blatant and they won't consider it? This is why I end with the conclusion of corruption.
Yeah. And on that happy note, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday, 9:00. Thanks, Skyward.
And yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Skyward. Over and out.